Okay. So, what words of wisdom, Lisa, would you have to share for people along their journey?
That's good. Don't be afraid. Um, be you, all of you. Embrace it. Don't, oh my goodness. If I could give anything, any kind of advice to my younger self now is just embrace life, all the bumps, all that comes with it, the good, the bad, the happy, the sad moments, everything you go through, it makes you who you are today. Um, if you fall down, get back up. Don't stay down. Nobody is perfect. Um, you have to allow yourself to get to a point where, I don't know if unhappy is the best way to put it, but be uncomfortable being comfortable, if that makes sense. Um, I had gotten to a point where I was comfortable, but I was uncomfortable, like physically in my body was like 300 and something pounds, and I wasn't happy, and I was really depressed, and I moved back in with my parents to kind of figure things out, and um, I had some trauma that happened to me when I was a child that I never really addressed, and that kind of came through in food, and that's how I gained all the weight. But I always went up and down in my weight. Since I worked with you back in beginning in 2009, I would fluctuate, but I really never addressed the root issue of why I was going up and down. And so I had gotten to a point of really dark depression. And the only way out for me at that point was through food. And so I would eat, and then I would self-sabotage myself, and it was just a circle. And I was getting comfortable in that, but then at a point where I got uncomfortable and I got scared. And it was either I can continue on this path, or I can say fuck it and believe in myself if nobody else believed in me, and start that process. And so my advice to anybody would be to own everything that you go through. Own it. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't put a blanket on it. Don't mask or hide it, or lessen what's affected you because you want to make everybody else happy, because you can't make everybody happy, number one. And you can't make everybody happy if you can't make yourself happy. You can try to be a people pleaser, but that's only going to take you so far. At the end of the day, really you have yourself. Your family's there and your friends are there, but at the end of the day, nobody's gonna do it for you but you. And so you can bitch and cry and sit in the corner and play the pity party, why me, why I don't want to have this job, or why am I single, or why do I look this way. But you have to allow yourself to be honest with yourself, and don't play the victim, but see what you've gone through as an opportunity to do better for yourself. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, I really had to hit rock bottom mentally. I think mental health is so important, but I had to hit rock bottom mentally to really figure out I wasn't happy. And I had to really I had to fucking let go of everybody else. Like, I cared so much, and I still care obviously about my family, but I cared about what they thought, and I cared about what my friends thought, and I cared about like everything, that I just was living every day like in this constant get up, go to work, come home, be depressed, drink, like, and I wasn't authentically happy. And I was ashamed, and I had to get to a point where I was like, look, I didn't put on the 300 and something pounds by myself, or it didn't just happen overnight. I did it. I had to own it, and I had to make um, every day I had to see it as a new day. If I had a bad day, I had to go the next day saying, okay, that was yesterday, and keep pushing. And I just had to go ahead and stop listening to what everybody else thought I should do. I don't know if that makes sense. So oh, you should do this, or you should do that, or you should do this, or you should go into law, or you should do, like, shut the fuck up. You're not paying my bills. You're not, you're not in my body. You're happy. What happens when you're happy and I'm still unhappy because I'm listening to everybody else? And so I think that's something that I would definitely tell somebody, is just to let go, believe in yourself, allow yourself to be afraid. I think fear is good in a way. I think it definitely can inspire and motivate you. It's supposed to scare the fuck out of you sometimes. I think when you get scared is when things happen, because it's either you do or you don't. And if you don't, you know what the outcome is. And so I think allowing yourself to be vulnerable and just believing in yourself when maybe nobody else will, and understanding that people are going to have opinions, and opinions are like assholes. Like, everybody has one, and like, okay, and not take, okay, so I don't know if you remember that, and I'm going all over the place, I'm sorry. I remember, I don't know if you remember when there was one time, oh my goodness, like something that you told me, it was a long time ago, and you were like, Lisa, I need you to be honest with me, because if I can't help you with the team, if you guys aren't honest with me, I don't know, I can't do anything. And that, like, I was at that moment, and I was really guarded with everybody. I was such a guarded person, not because of you, but because I'd never really addressed the trauma that I had when I was a child. And so I had that kind of like guard and not wanting to be vulnerable. And so when you kind of was like, look, I need you to trust me, and I'm like, this girl wants, she wants to, not girl, but Jody wants me to trust her. She doesn't really even know me, but she's willing to put herself out there and establish that. And I think it was that at that point that I was like, it's okay to be vulnerable. I'm not doing myself any justice if I'm not allowing me to be vulnerable to people. And that's when things started to kind of slowly, not overnight, change, take effect. And because I was so guarded, but vulnerability really, I think, and growth kind of go hand in hand. A lot of people are like, oh, I was vulnerable and I'm never going to be vulnerable again. Okay, that's great, but you're shooting yourself in the ass if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable again. Because we all get hurt. That's the reality of it. We all have issues. We all come from different, there's things that happen that mold us. But I think by not allowing yourself to be vulnerable because of those past experiences, we're losing out on so much. We're losing out on, opportunity. We're losing out on relationships. We're losing out on just personal development and growth. And I think that being vulnerable, taking risks, being afraid is okay. I think that that's the biggest thing that I could take out of is embracing the fear, embracing the what if. And one thing that I've always struggled with, and I still do at times, is listening to everybody else, like their thoughts, and trying to make everybody happy. And here's the thing, not everybody's on your side. In a perfect world, it would be great that, we could think, oh, everybody's cheering for you, but not everybody's cheering for you. Like, through my weight loss and just through being more comfortable and getting more confident, I have seen people who are genuinely and authentically happy for me, and trust and believe that I have the best intentions. But then I have seen people who are saying they're cheerleaders for me and are like in the front cheering for me, but I've seen a not so nice side of them, and so that plays, and well, for me, that played in my head. And so it was hard for me to kind of put that into a different section of my life, because I was very influenced by that kind of like background chatter. And that had a direct hand in what, or the progress I did make or I don't make, if I don't make it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're in a, even more now than ever, we're in a society that we're under scrutiny all the time, like social media, and you know, like you have to have this perfect, you know, you have to have this perfect picture, you have to have perfect skin, you have to have like a perfect body. Fuck that, nobody's perfect. Like, I look a hot mess a lot of the times when I wake up. My hair is like all over the place. I have, my emotions are up and down. I'm super emotional. And I used to try to hide it, but fuck it, I can't. Like, I'll have good days. I'll go to 0 to 100, and sometimes I have to take a step back and be like, what the fuck, Lisa? Take a step back, breathe. I'm human. Everybody's human, you know, nobody's perfect. And one thing I did learn, and I'm still learning, is having your tribe or keeping people around you. The people that you keep around you, they say you are the company you keep. That is so true. Like, people who are negative and who are or like passive aggressive, or who are, I need the center of attention all the time, those people suck the life out of you. It may not happen right away, but in time, like a year, 2, 3, 4 years on the road, you're like, what the fuck? Like, this is how this person is. I'm getting sucked, my energy is getting sucked out, and being replaced by just negative thoughts about myself because I'm around that kind of those kind of people. So I think selecting the people that you're around is really important, because they're the ones that are gonna, you know, keep that energy. Energy is so, like, energy is everything. I've learned too. You know, you can meet somebody and right away you kind of have an energy about them. Like, is it good or is it bad? You know, that's important because we adapt, or we start to mirror who we hang out with, if that makes sense. And through my weight loss, that I've learned that there was a point where I was around people who were just negative or weren't happy in their life, and then that started to kind of re-enter my life, and then I started to make not the best choices for my weight loss or just my mental health based off of what they were doing. And so I think, understand that it's okay to be alone in your journey. You don't need to have somebody all the time with you in your journey. Actually, it's probably better not to have somebody around all the time, because then you really are not learning more, you know, the most that you can about yourself. I think that give yourself time to be alone, give yourself time to be on the journey by yourself, and be okay with what you know, the good things that come and maybe the mistakes, because you learn from those mistakes. I think the best entrepreneurs are the ones that have made, you know, mistakes several times and then finally, you know, gets it right. But at the end of the day, they believe in themselves, number one. I think that's the most important, is you have to be your biggest cheerleader first before anybody else can cheer for you. And be really selective, you know, about who you allow into your personal circle, because that's going to have a direct reflect out of where you stand at and the progress you're going to make. And man, I've learned that, like, throughout this process of trying to be healthy and making better choices, is that if I could go back 5 years and be like, what are you doing? Why are you hanging out with that person? That person doesn't genuinely care about your goals. That person is at that moment focused on them, and they're asking you to join the ride. Is how is that going to help you 5 years down the road? If I could do that, if I can go back and tell myself that, I would probably be like 10 pounds lighter, you know, even more. But that's, you know, the number thing isn't important. It's about how I feel about myself. I think that's what's most important. And knowing that I don't need to be perfect. I think that's what's most important. Loving yourself is something that is the biggest lesson. And I'm still learning that. Like, there are some days that I don't love myself that much, and then there's some days that I love myself maybe too much. And but knowing that I'm like that, I think that's the biggest. That's when you are being successful, is when you can recognize, the great, and maybe some things that you should tweak a little bit more. But I think just embracing, knowing that that you're not going to be perfect, and that's okay, and just doing what makes your soul happy. Like, I think that's really what's important. If I can inspire one person, then I think that then I'm very happy with it. Somebody had told me, "Oh my God, you like taking selfie pictures," or "Oh my God, you're about social media." And actually, I'm not, because if you know me, that to this person that said that, then you know that I have insecurities about taking pictures. And if you know me, you would look at all my pictures and from a while ago and see that they're only like face pictures, because I didn't want to show my body. But if you're my friend, or if you care about me, then you should be happy that I'm starting to have confidence to take pictures. So it's like kind of taking a step back and saying to myself, who really in my corner, and do I really need anybody in my corner, to cheer for me? And I had to be okay with saying, no, I don't need anybody in my corner. I think, and I'm still learning that, because I'm I like to give a lot to myself. And what I found, and this does affect me in my weight loss, is that I give so much, but then if something happens and I don't get that back, not that I give to get because I want it back, but I just, it feels good. Oh, to get, I guess it feels good to have that reciprocated, if that makes sense, and then back and forth. And I've learned, and I had to be okay with learning that not everybody is going to think like me in that aspect. And that once I got okay with that, and I became okay with that, then I became okay even more with having myself and only myself in my corner. And when you become okay with that, is when real things start to progress for you. And so it's crazy that we're talking about that, because I think when we first started talking earlier, it was like, I've told you, I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want to do now in my, my career, because I love what I do. But I think it's no longer fulfilling me, if that makes sense. And so now I'm at a point where, fuck, I need to make a choice. Do I stay or do I venture off in something else? And that's scary. And but I know what I need to do. And if I don't take a risk, then I'm gonna be stuck in something that I'm not happy with in 5 years. And do I want to be that stuck, or do I want to progress and maybe maybe what I'm gonna do is what's meant for me to do, or maybe I'm gonna fall on my fucking face, and then that alone is adversity, and I'm gonna be able to get up and continue going. My dad always says, you have to let things roll off the back of your ass like water off of a duck's ass. So I'm trying to take that approach to it. My dad's like, oh, if it doesn't work out, try something else. So I trying to have more of a laid back approach like that is something I think is also helpful to people too. I think, I don't know, I can go on and on and on about this, but fear is insane, and fear will completely handicap anybody. And for the longest time, it handicapped me, for probably good 20 years of my life, because I was so fearful to let people know what happened to me when I was a child, that it seeped negatively into different areas of my life, positive eating, and low self-esteem, and feeling unworthy of any of friendships, or or even romantic relationships, all of that kind of all that came from that. And so fear is something that can completely handicap anybody. And I think if I can help anybody, it would be to allow yourself to be fearful. Like be fearful and take risk. Because I don't know how to put it. Be fearful, but be brave. Face the fear, because if you don't face it and be realistic with it, then you're never gonna be able to move past that. So I think that's the biggest thing that I could, if I could tell anybody, you got to look in the eye of fear and just continue to keep going. Yeah, but I see it with everybody being fearful. Fear and what people perceive that they have to be, or where they have to be. I have a friend who is an amazing person, and she's talented and she's educated and she's one of the sweetest people I know, but she is handicapped because of her fears. And I can't do anything for her. I can be like, I could be her biggest cheerleader. I can, tell her you got this and help her, but she has to be able to look in the eye of fear and go toward, move towards the light in that direction. I can't make her do that. And then I have somebody that I work with who is amazing, but she's fearful of what potentially, what she can do with herself. And it's scary. It's sad and it's scary that a lot of us are defined by what we're afraid of, and we don't allow ourselves to face the fear. Because we feel that fear, or facing the fear and failing, is so detrimental. And really, I think we're more afraid of what others will think if we fail. That we walk in this, we're trying to stay in a cookie mold kind of thing situation. So don't be afraid. It's my biggest
Wonderful
thing.
words of wisdom.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you. I don't know, I get the long.
I love that you shared part of your story, pieces of your story. I love that you brought in other people that you're connected to, like real life examples. And I took so much away just listening to you, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We all go through things, and it's in our society, it's so taboo to talk about things that really define us. I mentioned I had a trauma when I was a child, and it's and I never got professional therapy for it. I think I went to one session and I was like, but I had dealt with it internally for so long that I didn't feel like it was something that I needed to do, and I probably should go. But I'll share it with you, and if it's too much, you just let me know. But I was molested when I was a child by my step grandfather. Now my parents didn't know, and I kept it and I hid it for so long. And the only people that knew was my younger sister, and the reason why she knew is because I made sure that it didn't happen to her. And then her and I trained my youngest sister to make sure that if anything, she knew if anything, anybody tried to violate her in any kind of way, what she needed to do. And so that was the only person that knew for the longest time. And it wasn't until I was in college in Florida that my roommate made me sit down and tell my parents when they came to visit what had happened. And which they were completely in shock. But my dad says, now I understand your relationship with food and you're traumatic, why you had that situation. Because I was the biggest closet eater. Like, I ate so much and so unhealthy and binged and had such a unhealthy relationship with food, because that was the way that I coped with flashbacks or that traumatic event. And that went on for probably 3 or 4 years when I was young. I think from the age of 6 until 9. I think that's when it stopped. but I was always very petite when I was little, but I ate to distort my body, because I didn't want somebody to violate me again. So I figured in my head at that time that if I could eat to distort my body and make it where nobody would want to violate me, then I'm protecting myself. And so I used that fear in it projected in an unhealthy way. Flash forward 300 pounds, 300 plus pounds I got, but I would always go up and down. And so, you know, those events, even though, I mean, I wish I didn't have to go through that. That is who made me who I am today. And I think that's what shaped me. And so if I can overcome that, and if I can, through all of that, come out and be like, love myself even more and understand that I am not perfect, but I am who I am. And if somebody likes it, great. If they don't, great. I don't care. Keep moving. I think that's what's authentic about it. And I think that if more people can become okay with that, sharing the good and the bad, and not hiding or feeling like they can't disclose anything because it's taboo to talk about, I think you'll see more people become more happier with themselves and just be more authentic. And then that will help with like mental health, and because mental health is real and it's so important, and addiction in different ways is they all go hand in hand. Food addiction is a real thing. People say, oh no, it's not. No, it is. So people turn to alcohol when they're happy or sad or whatever. People turn to food when they're happy, they're sad, or whatever. And it's even harder when your culture is based around food. I remember, my grandmother would be like, oh, you had a good day? Here, eat. You had a bad day? Oh, here, eat. Oh, you're sad? Oh, here, eat. And so you have this, and that was my grandmother who I was really close with. You have this kind of like, oh, I'm just going to eat because any emotion that I have, which is at the end of the day, not the best way to be. But then on the other extreme, my other grandmother, who was very strict on food and who was very judgmental, it had another unhealthy, view on food. And so who we are and who we grow up around, or our culture is plays a big role in that. And I think if we can, I don't know, just be okay with sharing things that may be taboo or may not have approval, or acknowledge that, I think that's half the battle. So it's taken me a long time to be able to talk about that particular event that's happened, but there are probably a lot of people out there that have had stuff like that. And then there are people out there who've had it 10 times worse than I have, because I didn't have a bad childhood. My parents are still married. I have beautiful parents who did everything for me, for my sisters and I, to make sure that we had a good education, that we were decent human beings. And so never went without. Beautiful child. But this event, or this traumatic event that happened in my life, did shape me, and did play a big part of depression and being obese. And to this day I have days where I struggle with it. And so but I have to understand, once I became okay with knowing that that's going to happen, I think that's when the real magic happens. And I think that's where all of, if I put it out there, people are gonna like it. They'll like it. If not, they're not gonna like it. That alone it's taken me a long time to be okay with that.
Yeah.
But now I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't care. If you don't like it, bye. Like, there's the door. If you don't like what I have to say, that's okay, because you don't have to agree with me. But you're going to respect me, because I'm going to respect you. And if you don't respect me, then we don't need to be in the same circle or anything like that. And so often you have people around that are like, oh, I'm authentic, or oh, I'm this, or I'm that, but they're the biggest ones they're the ones that are the most afraid, and they're the ones that are hiding the most. And so I don't know. I just think that, people shouldn't be afraid or ashamed or or fearful of who they are or what they went through, because ultimately that makes them who they are today. So once they come to terms with that and allow themselves to be real and honest about that, is when everything will kind of fall into place for them. So
Love it.
thank you.
Thank you for being willing to share all that. I mean, it does. It really takes a lot of, it takes a lot of personal work to get to a point, one, where you even bring it to the forefront of your mind, right, for yourself. And then it takes a whole other set of grit and willingness and just personal bravery to voice that out loud to anyone, let alone openly. And the fact that you have done that work to get to a point where you're able to voice that and share that, you're absolutely right. There's countless people out there who've probably gone through something very similar, or, as you said, much worse, or to an entirely different level, that have learned how to cope with it in different ways. Or maybe they haven't learned how to cope with it. Maybe they haven't even been willing to admit it to themselves, let alone share it out loud to even begin the work on it. And I think, one of the most powerful things is being able to look at it and face it yourself, to then do the work on it. Because if you don't, as you said, you end up in this place where you're coping with it and you're hiding it. And then what you've also done by not being willing to look at it is stunted your evolution and your growth as on so many levels, because like you talked about, it feeds into every other part of your life. Who you are professionally, personally, as a human being, it has so many effects. So just the willingness for you to just kind of press pause and go, hang on, like I need to look at this first. Like there's something here that's trying to get my attention through all these things that I'm doing. And so being willing to look at it and then go, okay, yeah, that's really real. That happened, and validate it for yourself. And then being willing to take the process of working through it. I mean, that alone is wicked scary. And so, and then, like I said, a whole other level of voicing it and sharing it. But that's exactly what we were talking about before we started having this conversation, was like humanizing the human experience and the journey, and saying, hey, this happened to me. This is how I dealt with it. This is what I learned from it. This is the process that I went through. This is the process I'm still going through. And sharing that in the spirit of, here's my growth, here's my journey. And if it can help you, hopefully it can serve you along your journey as well. So thank you for being willing to share.
You are so welcome. I'm happy that I'm actually honored that I'm able to share it, because I think, like I said, if it can help one person, great. And it's actually helping me, talking about it, because, there's something therapeutic sharing your journey with somebody. And it's one thing to share it with one person, but when you listen to the words that that you're saying out loud, that you're sharing with somebody, that's therapeutic on a whole different level too. Yeah. It's sad when I think that there are people out there that are afraid to share it because they're afraid of judgment of others.
Yep.
And I think to get to a place where, because I used to be ashamed, I would never tell anybody, would never tell anybody my weight. Like, I would lie on my driver's license, and knowing that the person looking at my driver's license probably knew that I wasn't like 180 pounds at that time. Mm-hmm. But, those things are shameful. And I was super afraid and super ashamed to share that I was molested. Because for whatever reason, society or whatnot, I felt like people are going to I felt two things. People are going to look at me and judge me. And then people are going to judge my parents, and they had nothing to do with that. And they weren't at fault at that. And so I wanted to protect them. And so I honestly felt for the longest time, I felt like a fraud, if that's the right word, because I felt like I wasn't being 100% authentic of for the longest time about what had happened to me and how it directly affected, in this case, my weight, and that affected my self-esteem, and that affected just, it spiraled into, you know, my self-worth and how I valued myself, and and that affected me in a way where I limited myself and my abilities and my, you know, my talent or what I could do because of all these things that triggered back from that I never shared. And once I allowed myself to share that and not be ashamed, and own it, because it is what it is when I then started to see, you know, things progress personally, mentally, physically, and I think, you know, everybody's human. Nobody's perfect. You know, nobody's perfect. Some people think they're perfect, but reality is they're not. And that's what we as society should strive as, is to embrace our imperfections. And once we do that, then I think the sky is the limit for anybody to do that, you know, to be who they want to be. So thank you for inspiring us.
Well, I appreciate your time this morning. I know you made arrangements to be here and share your message, so I can't wait to share it on a larger level. And like I said, I'll email you the waiver form and just kind of give you some other ways that I'm sharing the content in advance of the documentary, because the goal is to share it in different forms. So I just want to make sure that you're okay with that too. And it's so wonderful to see you.
Oh, so wonderful. I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm really honestly honored that you reached out and invited me, because and I talk about you all the time. So I know that sounds weird, but I do use you as an example to my staff or my peers. So your ears ring. It's probably because I am honest. 2 weeks ago, it was so crazy. 2 weeks ago, I was telling my staff member, Amy, about you and about how you had that come to Jesus conversation with me, that it was where you were like, oh, Lisa, I need you to be honest with me because I can't help anybody. I was telling her that exact conversation. And then you reached out, what was it, last week? And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, see, I'm telling you. What? I'm like, you need to follow her. She's amazing. So I honestly, with everything, talk about how influential you've been for me, not only in career-wise, but just as somebody who is just, and I'm not women's rights, obviously I'm a woman, but I'm not super, oh my God, women, but yeah. You are the epitome of a girl boss. You are, you just take it, you're very empowering, you're very motivating, and you're very inspiring. So keep doing what you're doing because you definitely help a lot of people. So
thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you for sharing that. It's all about the ripple effect. You never know what impact you're having in the moment. And so I'm happy to hear that some of our come to Jesus conversations have had an impact. And I know we'll stay connected, continue to stay connected. I would love to continue collaborating and supporting you however I can along what, your journey and everything that you're doing. And so thank you again for this morning. I'll just keep an eye out for my email with the waiver form, and whatever you feel comfortable sharing on your Instagram. I don't know if you posted yet about it, but we'll reshare it on my side of things. So awesome.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to anything else you need, you let me know.
Okay. All right. Well, enjoy your day, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.